Let me tell you that in order to live life well, we must learn the principles, the kingdom principles for how to get along with other people. For how to get along with other people. This is why everything Jesus said in what we call the Beatitudes has to do with relationships. Beatitudes means blessing. That's why he said, blessed are, blessed are, blessed are. So how we interact with each other is, as I've mentioned already, the realm of ethics. Let me give you these as we bring this to a close. When Jesus was asked, what is the greatest commandment? He gave a relational answer. You know the story. One of them, a lawyer, it says, asked him a question to test him. Teacher, which is the great commandment in the law? It's almost like a student cramming and going to the professor. Professor, you told me to read these 12 chapters. I don't know if you ever had this, Lindsay. You told me to read 12 chapters over the weekend, but which one is really the big one I should be reading? What's the big commandment? What's the main commandment? There were 633 commands that the Jews had at that time. This guy says, what's the main one? And he said to him, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. He might have thought he'd finished there. And then he goes on, he says this. This is the great and first commandment, and the second one is like it. You shall love your neighbour as yourself. They're both relational. And they both show that if you want to get relationships with others right, you get the first one right, and the other ones begin to fall into place. So all of the kingdom beatitudes are relational. They are relational ethics, and they are what is required to fulfill those two commands. Let me run you through this. You've seen this, you know this, but let me remind you of it. And he opened his mouth, Matthew chapter 5, verses 2 and 3, and taught them, saying, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So for your relationships to be meaningful and happy and for you to get along with people, you need to apply that principle right there. That principle right there, poor in spirit, means don't be on yourself. Don't be cocky. What's the word? Humility. Be humble. Make humility your goal. Not one of us is humble. Is there anyone here? Well, I could be wrong. Is there anyone here who is already humble? You're as humble as it can get. Is there anyone? Because if you put your hand up, you're not. Apart from my daughter Ruby, apparently. Blessed are the meek. This is how he said it again, for they shall inherit the earth. So the second principle that Jesus gives is learn how to forgive others who offend you. Anyone struggle with this? Don't put your hand up. We all do. In Hebrews 5:14, the writer to the Hebrews, probably Barnabas, said this, but solid food is for the mature, for those who have their powers of discernment trained by constant, get this word, it's in the New Testament, constant what? What's that word? Practice. That should be a huge relief to you. You have to practice how to forgive others. What does practice mean? It means that not every time you have a go, you're going to get it right. Oh, thank God, because I really don't get it right every time I have a go. You can practice this. See to it that no one, the writer to Hebrews continues, see to it that no one fails to obtain the grace of God, because this is what happens if you don't practice learning how to forgive others, so that no root of bitterness springs up and causes trouble, and by it many have become defiled. Jesus goes on and he uses the word rejoice in Matthew 5:12. And from this we can see that we should learn to see the good rather than focusing on the negative of others. Parents need to be mindful of this with their kids. Matthew 5:12, rejoice and be glad. Just you might want to turn to someone now, show them your glad face. Thank you. I'm seeing lots of smiles. That's exactly what glad is, isn't it? Anyone want to show me grumpy, negative face? Don't you dare. For your reward is great in heaven, for so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. You want to get along with people? Smile more. They'll think you're mad, or they'll think you've got a reason to be happy. or both. We should, based on what Jesus says in Matthew 5:13, we should develop the habit of asking others, how can I help you? Can I help? How can I help you? Listen to what he says. When he says this, you are the salt of the earth, but if the salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. And I think when you have a meal, and nearly on every table I've been to, every restaurant I've been to, there's salt right in the middle there, and most people use it. Salt helps. We should help. When was the last time you asked someone, how can I help you? You want to get along with others, you'll find that if you say that to them, you'll probably have a better chance of getting along with them. But the most important goal, and this is where Jesus finishes up this section of the Beatitudes, is to make God your goal. Make his will your highest priority. Matthew chapter 6 and verse 33, just before we go to 1 Thessalonians 2:12, it says this, but seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. Wow, get that. You see, these are goals. These are things we strive for.
We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like. If you'd like to see more, hit the subscribe button. For more information about our church, head over to lagana.org.